All right, everyone. We are on to what is the final, I guess, proper Boards of Canada album, Tomorrow's Harvest. Now, they do have one more full album in their discography, BOC Maxima, but people don't really consider that an official part of the discography. I don't really know why, but people said, you can probably skip that one because it's not actually a proper part of their catalog. So I went straight to Tomorrow's Harvest instead. And this may end up being the final Boards of Canada video I do. We'll see about maybe doing one or two of the EPs. But honestly, I would be okay with the discography ending here. Only if there's like really high demand will I like go through and do their EPs, if I'm being honest, because this has been really fun to go through, getting weekly just uncut videos on each of the Boards of Canada albums and stuff like that. But I'm ready to move on to a new discography. I'm thinking I'm going to do Portishead next. Any objections to me doing Portishead? No? Good. Tomorrow's Harvest. This is the only Boards of Canada album that doesn't have a user must-hear on Album of the Year. It's at a 78.6, rounded up to a 79. All of the rest of them have a user must-hear. Music Has the Rights to Children, 86. GeoGaddy, 87. Campfire Headphase 84 and Inferno 82. Tomorrow's Harvest has a 79. That means this album is going to suck penis, ladies and gentlemen. This album's going to be a 0 out of 10. I've already decided. I'm obviously joking. The reception is still immensely positive. The reception, still is near enough at a must hear. I'm expecting this album to also be really good. I know nothing going into this one again. Obviously, Campfire Headphase was a very different album for them, going more into down tempo, kind of a more trip hoppy album. That was a little more straightforward in its instrumentals. Had like lots more like guitar based tracks, a lot more tracks that had like a little bits of live instrumentation as well. Their most straightforward record so far. So I'm going into this one extremely interested to see how this one sounds. It is listed as IDM here, so I'm expecting it to be a little more in line with their other stuff, but I don't know. We are just gonna see. This one came out in 2013. Is that? Yeah, 2013. It is 17 tracks, an hour and 2 minutes. Let's do this. Track 1, Gemini. We're not starting with a 1-minute interlude this time. Or their other albums start with like 1-minute tracks. If your tunes are early mixtape adjacent BOC albums before BOC Maxima, only released on cassette. Yeah, I'm not going to be covering that shit. That's a little too obscure. That's a little too obscure. This feels like it's representing the album cover really well. Like, it's got this one really desolate instrumental, and then layered under it is like a much more like bustling synth part that's a lot faster. It literally feels like the album cover where it's like the desert with like just the shadow of a city looming over it. That's a very cool way to start this. This is something Skrillex would low-key play on his set, yeah? Ooh, nice transition. As an opener, I would give that a high 7. I don't know. I feel like the transition in that song from this very desolate, very deserted sounding instrumental into the more bustling synth part that kind of feels a little more futuristic, and it kind of displaying what the album cover is showing as like a transition from a desert turning into a city. It's a pretty cool way to, I guess, well, not visualize that, but a pretty cool way to, I guess, represent that musically. Maybe it would have been nice to have that track come a little later. I feel like that as an opener isn't necessarily the best way to kick the album off. I don't know. It feels like a piece that's that representative of, like, I don't know, like the album cover itself, or a piece that's representative of what the album means as a whole. It would be nice to maybe have that come a little later as like something to come in the midpoint, like a transitional piece. But for it to start off the album, it just feels a little... Basically, I enjoyed the song, but I'm not a big fan of its placement as an opener, essentially. Next track, Reach for the Dead. This was the only single for this album, okay. This was like a big comeback for them, wasn't it? Yeah, Campfire Head Phase was 2005, this is 2013. And then Inferno was 2026, which means their next album will be in, what? 2044 will be the next Worlds of Canada album. Exciting stuff. Reach for the Dead is a melodic palindrome of another track near the end of the album. What the fuck does that mean? A melodic palindrome? What, is just like another track in reverse? That would be another 13-year wait. I'm saying it's an 18-year wait. If we're scaling up by the same metric. So it was 5 years, then 13 years. This time it'll be 18. Imagery-wise, I gotta say, this track feels like it's doing something very similar to the previous song. Like, it feels like that same transition from, like, very deserted sounding, very dry, desolate instrumental, progressing into something very futuristic sounding. Except this time I feel like that progression is even more satisfying than the previous track and makes a lot more sense coming where it is, because it kind of goes from something that feels arguably like a little ambient, something that feels, I don't know, very spacey and very like empty and open, into something that feels so busy, something that feels, I don't know, a little bit closer to like, I don't know, maybe some of the more like straightforward, I guess straightforward in a similar way to their previous album, but not obviously replicating that exact same sound necessarily. I really appreciate what this track does, and I think that it works a lot better than the previous song as well, in terms of like being that progression from like empty, open, desolate instrumental into something very busy and something very futuristic. I'm feeling a flat 9 on this one. White Cyclosa. I'm probably saying that wrong. Oh, absolutely, yeah. 100%. Never heard of this album, huh? Damn. Aren't I human anymore? Rebrand. I was like, Human Reviews is a terrible channel name. Here's a worse one. The song's almost over. That's it? Huh. That track felt like it didn't really get to fully progress or spread its wings, you know? I feel like this song feels a little unfinished. I feel like that track could have been so much more than it was. The actual like progression that we get feels so minuscule in scale, especially compared to the previous track. This feels like such a massive step back that it kind of, I don't know, it feels like a little too out of place coming after the previous song. It feels like too much more of a step down in terms of scale, to the point where it doesn't really fit in context. The song still sounds nice. I mean, again, the more like modern synths that they're using here work really well. I think that the actual sounds that they're playing with and the production still is fucking amazing. It's just the actual, I guess, song itself I found to be a little underwhelming. I'm feeling like a High six? Yeah, high six. Jacquard Causeway up next. Oh shit, okay. This is one of the best in your opinion? Immediately, this percussion is fucking insane. That super tinny snare sound. My OBS is freaking the fuck out for some reason. Hang on. Oh, I'm using the wrong bitrate. Should be at 12,000. have not. I have no idea what that is. Logo. What album is that on? I can't remember the titles of all of their songs. I've not seen it anywhere on any of their albums. Oh, it's on High Scores. I've not listened to that yet. This track was incredible for the most part. I do have one little issue with this, and it's that this track just feels a little overly long. The progression doesn't really feel like it's able to hold itself for the full 6 minutes and 30, and then by the time it gets to like that final minute or so, I'm just kind of like, okay, it feels like the track has kind of taken itself as far as it can, and then it feels like it's just going in circles a little bit for that final minute. But honestly, the entire rest of the song is fucking stunning. That very slow build, it's incredibly patience testing, but giving it the patience it deserves and allowing it to fully envelop you in its very slow build. It's just, there's something so magical about this. The same magical quality that you get on some of the longer tracks on like Inferno or on Geogaddy as well. Yeah, I would still give this track like a low 8, despite my one minor gripe with it. Fucking hell. Telepath up next. My voice gave up on me. Sounds so mystical and magical, yeah. Since on this album, Dreamy? I agree. Tennis? I don't know who that is now. The band is not from Canada, they're Scottish. What were the two numbers before 8? There is no 8. Oh wait, there is an 8. Fuck. I gotta be honest, we've already gotten a handful of Boards of Canada like creepy counting tracks, and the formula's worn on me a little bit by this point. It feels like retreading ground here in a way that's a little unflattering. Like, I've gotten the exact same experience out of this song that I can get out of numerous other tracks by the band and done better as well. I think there's one on Inferno. I think there's one on Geogaddy as well. There might be one on Music Has the Right to Children. I might be misremembering though. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can just get what this track gives me, but a little better done on other albums. I'm feeling like a flat 6 on this. I mean, it's fine. Still sounds pretty cool, but I don't know. I can just go to some of those other albums to get what that track gives me, but done in a way that's a little more interesting, in a way that feels a little more fleshed out. Cold Earth. Tennis Tom made a good video on the mysterious unreleased albums. If you're interested, you should watch. I'm not familiar with this Tennis Tom guy. Let me look up his channel. Good thumbnails. He also barely ever uploads. Holy shit. All his videos are like an hour long. The Lost Albums of Voice of Canada. Damn. He just used the infamous secret weapon that took years to track down. What's that? Hello, Question 23 specifically. I'm assuming that's what the capital A is meant to emphasize. That was great. That was just some, maybe like some of the feels a little just standard boards of Canada, but the execution is undeniably incredible. I'm feeling a solid 8 on that track. I don't know, it's like a nice 3-minute and 40-second eerie piece that, I don't know, takes the futuristic feeling of the rest of the album and makes it feel, I don't know, a little apocalyptic, that makes it feel a little uneasy. And again, I do feel like it's maybe a little back to basics boards of Canada. It's far from the most unique track in their discography, which is why it doesn't quite get up into 9 out of 10 territory. The execution is too great for me to give it anything below an 8. And I give it a solid 8 as well. So good shit. Transmissions Ferox. I'm almost definitely saying that wrong. Cool. Listening to Boards of Canada in the snow, God, that would be so perfect. Why'd I change the channel name? I wanted to rebrand. Human Reviews is a fucking horrible channel name. Frunk on Music isn't much better, but it's better than Human Reviews, you know? At least Frunk on Music is, like, more memorable, and it's, like, a play on something. And also it's more accurate, because I don't really do reviews that much. I do reactions, so... Was the human part accurate? Mostly. I'm a little torn. This is like an okay ambient piece. It feels like an interlude, but it's not like really interlude length. It feels like it's the length of like a normal Boards of Canada track. These feel like they range from 2 minutes to 6 minutes. It was like atmospherically interesting. You know, it felt kind of like chaotic and disorienting in a very quiet way. But I don't really understand this track's placement and what it represents necessarily. I'm feeling a low 6 on this one. Sick Times. Maybe. I think after this album, I'm not going to say I'm going to stop doing Boards of Canada after this album, but I might take a break from them. I want to do Portishead. I really want to do the Portishead discography, and then maybe after that I can come back and do the EPs and some of the lost tapes. Maybe. But yeah, next week I'm going to start the Portishead discography. David Guetta discography dive. That's when the wells really run dry. That's when you know I'm desperate, is when I start covering the David Guetta discography. Another true pioneer of electronic music, just like the OC. Yeah. True. Every track kind of feels like a slight step into the future. I'm at least liking the through line of imagery on these songs, even though I'm a little 50-50 on the album on the whole so far. I'm really liking that kind of through line. I'm gonna bring up what I think the overall issue I have with this album is. I'm gonna. This song was really good. I'm gonna get to why I enjoy this song, but I'm gonna say what my problem with this album is. coming off of Campfire Head phase, which is such a left turn for the band, it's so different from all of their other shit. I was expecting this album, you know, especially with it being like 8 entire years after that release, you know, this is like a big comeback for them. I was expecting something a little more bold, and this just kind of feels like shit standard Boards of Canada. This kind of feels like them just doing their thing, which for a big return and for an album that's coming off of such a massive switch, for it to feel like it's playing it so safe is a little disappointing. Now, that being said, I'm still loving a lot of what's being presented here. I think that this track is great. I think that the implementation of some of the newer synth sounds is really nice. It's adding at least a bit of variety to the actual sonic elements. But I feel like in terms of the songs themselves, it just feels like them doing their thing as opposed to something that feels like it's actually pushing themselves in a different direction. I'm a little confused as to why that is. They feel like a band that are constantly challenging themselves. I mean, I haven't listened to their discography in chronological order. I started with Inferno, then went Geo Gaddy, then Music Has the Right to Children, then Campfire Head Phase. I've listened to their shit completely out of order. But I have been able to pick out a distinct feature of all of their other albums. Inferno is horrific. Geo Gaddy is like mind-melting and disorienting throughout its entire runtime. Music Has the Right to Children is very ethereal. Then you get to an album like Campfire Head Phase, which is their very experimental album that is so different from all of their other shit. This is the one album that kind of just feels like, yeah, that's Boards of Canada, but I can't pick out a distinct feature about it. It kind of just feels like them, and that's it. That being said, I would give this song a solid 8. This song went hard as fuck. Excellent drum pattern, a beautiful progression on this track as well. Some really cool robotic sound play towards the back half there that really created a sense of unease. Like, anytime the album's going for something that feels a little eerie or uneasy, I'm finding that to be its strong suit. You can kind of feel a little bit of the stepping towards the super, super creepy shit that they'd go on to do on Inferno. I don't know. This is going to be my least favorite album of theirs. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to really turn it around and turn this into a fucking masterpiece in the back half here, but I'm still enjoying this. I want to make it very clear that, like, it's looking like Boards of Canada are going to be 5 for 5 for me. This album, the worst it's getting is, like, kind of meh, and the best it's getting is like great to incredible. So it's just a bit of a mixed bag for me so far. Collapse up next. Boards of Canada's worst album ever. Exactly. I said at the beginning this album was going to be absolute penis. I need to listen to it during winter. Maybe a seasonal change would help. I mean, Campfire Head Phase does feel like their summer album, you know. That's the album with all the bangers. I'm joking, obviously. You have 180 spare moolah right now. It's time to hit the casino. No, you know what it's time to do? It's time to save that until Thursday and pay for a very long album on a Human Reviews live stream. And then I can hit the casino. Wait, Fruncon Music, Human Reviews doesn't exist anymore. Bad. Terrible. I've still not fully adjusted to the name change, as you can see. all fun and games until you meet the B-man inside. I gotta say, whoever wrote that Reddit post on the Tally Hall subreddit, just actual loser shit, because now it's like every hour I'm just seeing a notification in my comment section being like, you are Brad Taste in music. It's like, it's just fucking annoying. Like, I respect the Muse Reddit post, and I don't respect the Tally Hall Reddit post, you know? Whoa, that was a fucking great transition. Holy shit. That, like, that cut off and then punching right in with the drums, that was great. I much prefer this to the other 2-minute track. This one's closer to 3 minutes, I guess. But yeah, I really enjoyed this track's ability to feel very dusty, had a very, like, windy quality to it. It felt like, I don't know, like going back to, like, the desert side of the album, seeing, I don't know, everything being so empty and spacious. And then kind of a feeling of like a rising chaos. There's very much like an anxious anticipation to that track that perfectly leads with that transition into Posy? I'm going to guess it's Posy. Anyway, flat 8 on that one. Nice transitional piece into Posy. Oh, it's a later track. Oh, I see. Of this track sequencing, it kind of just has fun with whatever it's doing. Yeah, I'm enjoying this track, but I have a similar problem with this one that I've had with some previous songs. I stand by what I said towards the midpoint of the track. I enjoyed this song a decent bit, but I have a very similar problem to what I've had with previous songs, and it's that I feel like I can get what this song does done better on other Boards of Canada albums. There are songs that I feel are similar to this, that are a little eerier, that go a little harder, kind of provide a much more clear atmosphere and much more clear imagery to kind of sit in during the course of those songs. This track sounds nice. I mean, it's got some great punchy percussion. I like how clicky a lot of the drum sounds are here as well. The sample of the guy saying 11, the way that's chopped up and the effects that are put onto it, I don't know, add a layer of like a robotic staticness to this track that I do appreciate. But this track, like a lot of others, just feels like a lesser version of some stuff Boards of Canada have already done. I'm going to be generous. I'll still give this a flat 7. I still think that it is a good song, but having heard some of their other shit, I'm like, okay, I can get this track done a little bit better in other places, you know? Split your Infinities. Wise have some of the best synths. I mean, Boards of Canada do have incredible synth sounds. I feel like they'd be up there. Maybe. Yeah. Inferno feels like what this album's doing done better. Again, I'm feeling like I'm hearing stuff on this track, and it sounds nice. There's some great synth sounds here, great punchy percussion, but not only do I feel like the song itself drags a little bit and doesn't really feel like it warrants even its 4.5-minute runtime, the progression just feels a little too sluggish on this song. I feel like, again, I'm getting a lot of the imagery from this track. I'm getting a lot of the, I guess, tonal elements of this song, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I could get this done better on other projects. I feel like this album isn't done worse, it just aims to be more atmospheric than most people prefer. I feel like its atmospherics aren't as good as some of their other albums, though. Far from terrible, but certainly feels like treaded ground. Yeah. This song's a high 6. It's a high 6. There's no bad songs on this album. Every song on this album is in the positive territory, bare minimum a 6. It just... I would never choose to listen to this over GeoGaddy. I feel like they do a lot of what this album does, but a little bit better on Inferno. Some of the more straightforward stuff, I would take Campfire Head Phase over it, and for a lot of the more ethereal, atmospheric shit, I'm gonna take Music Has the Right to Children. It feels like a lesser version of what the previous 3 albums have done, and then Inferno feels like what they attempt on this album, but done to damn near perfection, basically. I don't think this album is necessarily, like, lesser per se. I'm not going to sit here and say that this album is like any shade of bad. It's just a mixed bag. The great moments are really great, and then a lot of the stuff in between, and I'm going to get shit for saying this, it feels genuinely like filler. For a band that have never once had a moment that... Well, not never once, but for a band that have 95% of the time not had a single moment that I feel has been unnecessary to any of their albums. Hearing this, I'm like, it feels like we've got, in terms of like actual material that feels like it's worth another BOC album. It feels like across this project there's been maybe like 25 minutes of that so far, as opposed to the 40 minutes of this album that we've already listened to. Maybe less than that. Uritual or Uritual, I don't know. This or Declassified? I don't know, man. Tom McDonald's really showing them lefty lunatics what's what. They may be relying on a formula, but at least they know how to do the formula right. Yeah. I think every BOC album follows a similar concept or theme. Yeah. It's just that this explores some of those themes in the least interesting way for me. You can't say you couldn't get anything from Declassified on any other Tom McDonald album. That one's special. Exactly. The 3 I gave it was not a 3 out of 100. It was a 3 out of 1. A 30 out of 10. Honestly, no rating on this. That one is the first track that actually properly feels like an interlude. No rating. It's a decent enough ambient kind of piece. I don't know. I found to maybe be not the most gripping, but I don't know. It's decent. Nothing is real. Again, maybe might do some of the EPs. I'm gonna be doing the Portishead discography starting next week. Then maybe after that I'll come back and do some of the EPs. We'll see. Track drags a little bit, but it's very sweet. It's a nice, like, burst of color on the album. One thing I'm really finding interesting about this album, actually, specifically, is the production. Like, a lot of their old albums feel like, I don't know, finding some mysterious, like, tape or CD in the woods, and it's sounding, like, very dodgy. This, like, tracks like this, they have very modern production. Like, the drums are as punchy as any, like, dance or house track. The synths are very clean and very soft over this song as well. The bass is super thick. It's like incredibly modern production, which I'm not used to from them. Like, that's maybe the one thing that I'll give this album that makes it stand out, is it has some interesting production choices. This is what a lot of the second half was missing with its wondrous synth use over this warm yet cryptic, over such warm yet cryptic tones. Solid to high 9. I did really appreciate this track, even if I felt like it dragged a little bit. It's a high 8 for me. Good shit, just a nice like burst of color, a moment of optimism on what is otherwise a fairly dark album. All the drums were recorded like, really? That's pretty cool. Sundown. Sundown feels like end credits to Humanity music. Hello, Shaden. It's a great ambient piece. That shit was actually genuinely haunting. Solid 8. Yeah, I really like that we're getting something that's just so spacey, moody, and very like full of despair on the album at this point. That's like a perfect place for an ambient piece to go towards the final quarter here. I really appreciate what this track does in terms of like the pacing and the tonality of the album here. Good shit. New Seeds. I've heard half of Yankee UXO. Love how much of this album sounds like breaking news music. I'm loving the atmospheric elements of this track. Everything else, it's losing me. It's really losing me. Like, this just isn't that interesting a progression. Yeah, I was literally going to say the progression makes it feel very static. This is the weakest song so far for me. I'm feeling a high 4 to a flat 5. Great atmospherics. I think that there are multiple moments on this track that are beautiful individually, but the entire like cohesive piece that is this song is just flat boring to me. Like, I did not find this to be an interesting progression. I did not find any of the stuff outside of some of the atmospheric elements to be all that pleasant. Like, it just felt so stagnant. The song didn't feel like it was really going anywhere or like it had any real point that added anything to the album. This just feels like a 5.5 minute track for the sake of a 5.5 minute track. I really don't get why this song's here. It doesn't add anything to this for me. It's just feels like it's going through the motions more than it is actually exploring an interesting idea. Like, I was moving to it for the first half, and then once I realized that the track wasn't going anywhere, it was just like, oh, that's disappointing. Yeah, this is the weakest track I've heard from the band so far. I did not like this song. This is their We Suck Young Blood. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. We Suck Young Blood is like a 1 out of 10 song. This isn't that bad. This is just kind of like boring. Come to Dust up next. Let's hope the album can end on a bang at least. My PC ran out of disk space. Unlucky. We continue. We're gonna run this track back from the start. mega lag there, holy shit. Fucking hell. It's a hell of a sneeze. Same. I don't know what it is, man, with these tracks, they're losing me so fast. Like, they have interesting, like, first thirds, and then they just trail off. Yeah, they kind of don't. They kind of don't. The last thing I expected to describe a Boards of Canada album as is boring, but that's how this album has gotten moving into these final tracks here. I'm just really not pulling anything out of this anymore. Like, these songs are starting off strong, and then they're just really trailing off, and I can find myself, like, mentally just clocking out a little bit. Like, it doesn't really feel like there's any hooks in these songs to really make me want to focus and pick them apart more. It's just like, yeah, I've heard this before. You've given me exactly what this track gives me before many times, and far more interesting as well. Like, this is significantly less adventurous than a lot of their other stuff. This is significantly less atmospherically bold than a lot of their other stuff. This is significantly less developed than a lot of their other stuff. This just feels like noodling around more so than it does actually having finished ideas. I'm disappointed, man. Like, this album's actually getting to, like, me disliking it territory, which, like, I'm feeling a high 4 on that song. That's the first score I have given Boards of Canada in the negatives ever. That is the first score I've given them that goes below a 5. Damn. Like, I really went into this album expecting, like, to really like it, and I've enjoyed it, but this is a very mixed bag with some very, very bumpy spots. Like, I am still like, I have liked this album, but it gets rough at points, man. No. The previous song I gave a flat 5. I said it was a high 4 to a 5. I gave it a flat 5. That song, I firmly stand on it being a high 4. Please end on a strong note. Noodling around can be really good in ambient. I just don't think Boards of Canada seem to be able to do it. Not here, unfortunately. Seeds of the Dead. Okay. The car's on fire. There's no driver at the wheel. Go to a desert or an arid mountain valley and play this. I don't exactly have easy access to those, unfortunately. So that one's gonna have to be a no for me. Track was recorded on a VHS deck, huh? Come to the Sahara Desert and listen to this. This does have that desolate quality to it, though. Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling a solid 6. It's a decent, I guess, foreboding kind of ambient track to close off the album that creates enough of a feeling of dread for me to say that I was following along with it for the most part. It's a positive to end off the album, though not the biggest positive, you know? I thought this was okay. I thought this was an okay closer. Wow, this is the weakest of their albums. Quite easily, for me, the weakest of their albums. I'm gonna get one thing straight, and I'm gonna say I liked this album. This is a good album, but this is firmly good and not anywhere even close to great like the rest of their music is. This is a noticeable step down with multiple tracks that I found to be boring, underwhelming, and to just retread the same ground that the band have gone over so many times before in more interesting ways, in ways that create more immersive atmospheres, in ways that create more interesting soundscapes, and ways that just make for like more re-listenability. I can't see myself coming back to this album at all. Like I might do a ranking video for the band soon, and I'll re-listen to the album for that. But besides that, I can't see myself listening to this casually, because the more straightforward stuff on this album is done better on Campfire Head Phase. The more creepy stuff on this album is done better on GeoGaddy, and then is done better as well further down the line on Inferno. The more atmospheric stuff, the more ethereal stuff is done better on Music Has the Right to Children. I seriously do not see a situation where I'd pick this album over a single other one of their albums. That's not to say it doesn't have its highlights, though. There are great moments here. Absolutely. I think the Reach for the Dead is the strongest cut on the album easily. I thought that was an incredible track that kind of was like that same level of quality as a lot of their other stuff. You have songs on here like Jacquard Causeway, Cold Earth, I really liked. You also have a song like Nothing Is Real that I thought was pretty great too. Sundown was a solid cut. Like, plenty of tracks on here that are great, plenty of tracks on here that I would come back to individually. I just feel like the album experience is too up and down for me to say that I would want to come back to it on the whole, especially when so many of these songs just make me sit here and think like, damn, I could be listening to GeoGaddy, I could be listening to Inferno, Campfire Head Phase, and Music Has the Right to Children instead of this, you know? Yeah, this is the weakest of the bunch. I'm feeling a flat 7 on this album. Flat 7. It's good. Is it great? No. It's the weakest of their albums and the only album that goes beneath an 8 out of 10, and it's all the way down at a flat 7. But I do respect this album. I do think it was an enjoyable experience, but man, there are some moments on here that are quite rough and hold it back from being great. And for like a big return for the band coming a whole 8 years after Campfire Head Phase, this feels like them just kind of being like, we're back and we sure are just doing our thing. You know, not really gonna push the needle all that much, not really gonna take that big of a leap forward with the band. We're just gonna kind of dick about, and it's like, okay, I guess. Sure. It says a lot that their worst work is still a 7. Absolutely. Like, the fact that their worst album is still a 7 out of 10, that's good. The fact that I think that their worst album is still solidly good is a very, like, positive statement about the band on the whole. Like, I have to very clearly state, this is a good album, in my opinion. This is a good album. But it's their weakest. Does this make Inferno that much more intriguing for me, though? Perhaps a re-listen soon. This makes me look back on Inferno in an even like more positive light, I think, because it's like, damn, they already attempted to do something that feels a little Inferno-esque, and then they did it just a million times better with that album. They really spent those 13 years wisely, you know? This is their worst album for me, but still an enjoyable enough listen, and one definitely worth giving a try. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this album down below and how it compares to other Boards of Canada albums for you. Next week, I'm going to be starting the Portishead discography, going to be going through all their albums, doing also uncut reactions once a week to them. So definitely, you know, stick around for that. If you are interested in seeing some Portishead, you can check out my reactions to all of the other Boards of Canada albums somewhere in a playlist around here. Definitely check those out if you haven't. Like and sub as well. We are on our way to 5K. Links in the description to my Discord, my Album of the Year, my Twitter, my other channels, my Instagram. Check those out if you haven't. And I will see you all whenever I next stream or upload. Bye-bye.